Welcome everybody to another episode of Anchors Away, and this one might be my favorite that we've done so far up to this point because we're going to do things a little bit differently again. We're only going to talk about the Mariners and the Wild Card Series today, and instead of doing 5 minutes, we're going to do 15 minutes today of just purely talking Mariner baseball and previewing this Wild Card matchup that we have starting today. Against the Toronto Blue Jays. We've waited for this moment for over 20 years now, so I think it's appropriate to kind of forget about the Seahawks playing New Orleans and just purely focus on the Mariners, playing playoff baseball for the first time, like I said, in a long time.
Oh, yeah.
So before we get into that, it's, how are you feeling about, the weekend coming forward, and how has the week been so far for you?
Yeah, looking forward to it. Still got some college football going on, so we'll definitely take a look at that. That'll be kind of fun. And of course, Seahawks playing the Saints. Kind of weird situation there, especially with Geno cooking, doing better than Russell Wilson stat-wise right now. So I don't know what to do about the Seahawks. Totally screwed up the whole season now. Yep. Thanks, Gino. But it'll be fun to see against the Saints. I think see what happens if they win that game, what happens. And of course, kind of getting geared up for next week too, with the Kraken finally starting to play. So really kind of, this just seems to be a really great time of the year right now for Seattle fans. We got lots to talk about, but yeah, doing well, looking forward to it, and going to be enough to watch. It's almost like I wish I had tomorrow off, because it almost seems like the beginning of March Madness with all the baseball going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, no, like you said, I think going forward there's going to be a lot of things to cover and talk about.
Yeah.
UW football, of course. We'll probably jump into Wazoo a little bit too, honestly, with how good they've been doing, or at least hanging on against really good teams and beating Wisconsin, then almost beating Oregon. And the Kraken are right around the corner. They're going to be releasing that final roster here shortly. And then, like you said, Seattle's in just a weird spot with the Seahawks right now, because, like you said, Geno is actually statistically playing better than Russell by quite a bit, and it's not at all what I think fans expected.
Did you expect Geno to be named NFC Player of the Week at all?
No, not at all.
And that's just blowing my mind right now.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of ruining what my thought was and my plans were for the off season. So it's but it's really good for him. Obviously that he is getting the recognition and respect, I guess, because he has played really really well. And obviously can't complain about it. I'd rather be winning than losing, but I also really like the thought of Levis, Young, or Stroud. So with that said, let's get this timer going, because I've been excited. So let's go ahead and start this timer once it pops up on the screen. We have 15 minutes today, so
there we go.
We got plenty of time. We don't have to. Eventually it'll probably be 16:37, and we will have gone over, but. With that said, Mariners are going to Toronto. When this goes up, it will be today at 4:00 Eastern time, 1:00 Pacific time. I know T-Mobile Park is having the playoff viewing party where fans can go to the stadium and just watch on the big screen there. Let's talk a little bit about the Game 1 matchup. We do know it's going to be Luis Castillo versus Alec Manoa.
Wow, what a great matchup.
Really two all-star pitchers from this previous year. When you hear that matchup, how are you feeling going into it?
I think we match up well. It's really going to be who scores first. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
I think Lewis is going to amp up, his game. I think he has even more that he can do. So I'm in a good place with that. Really. I think we can get to Alec Manoa with J-Rod, sorry. And J-Rod is going to dictate how that game goes, I think, in my mind. But I like Luis as starting out. I feel confident. I'm sure he does. He's ready to rock and roll. So I don't think it's too big of a stage for him. I don't think he's going to be nervous at all. I think he's just going to go out there and pitch, and that's nice to have that kind of an ace with that kind of mentality and makeup, that you don't have to worry about butterflies or anything. He's just going to go out there and pitch.
Yeah, I mean, I think the good thing too, with actually all of our starting pitching at this point, but like when Castillo was with Cincinnati earlier this year, he did go against Toronto in Toronto, went about 6 innings. Well, he did go 6 innings and only gave up 2 runs, which is a very strong start, and not in playoff atmosphere with a team that was not going to make the playoffs. So I think that's a good thing, and like you said, I expect him to really amp it up in the playoffs now. And I would probably look closer to like a 7 or 8 inning, maybe 1 to 2 runs over the extra 2 innings of pitching I would expect from him.
Right.
And then kind of just looking forward to game 2 and possibly game 3. Again, we're just going to stick with starting pitching for now. The stats that surprised me was Robbie Ray when he went up into Toronto to play the Blue Jays, of course his old team last year where he won a Cy Young. He also went 6 innings, only giving up 2 hits and 1 run. Whereas the last, few starts here, Robbie Ray's looked a little rough and not like that Cy Young pitcher that we paid pretty good money for. And seeing Gilbert's stats against the Blue Jays, it makes me a little bit more confident with Ray going in game 2, even if we lose game 1. It seems like Toronto just really has Logan's number for whatever reason. He went 13 innings across his 2 starts and gave up 7 runs. So, roughly about 3.5 runs a game, which still is much less than what their average runs a game are. But it does make me a little nervous that the Blue Jays lineup seem to just time up Gilbert better than Castillo and Ray.
Right.
We talked on Monday that we thought Logan Gilbert would be the game 2 starter. Do you still think he's game 2, or do you like Ray at game 2? Hearing at least those little stats there against the former team.
Yeah, I think you stay with Ray at 2. I think that's the right move. Win or lose in game 1, you stay it with Ray. With the playoffs, you're going to have shorter leashes with your pitchers.
Absolutely.
And so if it does end up we have to have game 3 and go with Gilbert, I think you have Kirby right behind him.
Behind Robbie Ray?
Behind Gilbert.
Oh, okay.
I think he's going to be or, if Robbie Ray goes off the rails, then you put Kirby in. I think Kirby is your X factor, depending on how the starter is doing. If one of our starters starts blowing up in 3 innings, pull him and get Kirby in. It's kind of what I'm thinking, because you can't let the game get out of hand, especially against Toronto. They just got too much firepower. They hit for average. You got like guys like Bichette that just scares the dickens out of me. And Springer too. Springer has played well against the Mariners. So when he was with Houston. So again, it's kind of one of those things. But I think you go with a short leash. But I do feel I think Ray is going to be amped up to play against Toronto. I think he's going to be okay. I think mentally he maybe have been looking at Toronto, knowing he could go up there without having the vaccination requirements anymore. So it may have gotten ahead of him a little bit. So he kind of lost the edge against the main season. No big deal. But I think Ray will step up and he'll be the Cy Young pitcher that we needed. So
I mean,
think he'll be okay.
Yeah, that's of course the hope. Because he did pay him like 5 years, $100 million to be that ace that we saw last year with him when he did win the Cy Young. And then going back just to the Blue Jays a little bit here, game 2 and 3, we'll probably see Kevin Gausman and Jose Barrios to go up against Ray and Gilbert. Whether that's flip-flopped or whatever the matchups end up being, I don't believe we know that for sure yet.
No.
But it's interesting just looking at pitching and bullpens, because I don't really know if there's an edge for either team. I feel like both pitching lineups are actually pretty even. That may be like Seattle bias a little bit, but I don't think so. I really feel starters line up very well against Toronto.
Starters line up good.
And our bullpens, they've continued to be the bullpen that Seattle's kind of been known for over the last couple of years.
Well, in regards to that, Toronto is a heavy right-handed lineup.
Yeah.
Our bullpen is a heavy right-handed lineup. So it plays into the bullpen far better for Seattle's advantage than Toronto.
Yep.
Because we got all these switch hitters that we can throw in there as well.
Yeah.
So we can be a little more dynamic offensively matching up against pitching than I think Toronto can against our pitching.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, the switch hitting is going to be a big factor with Cal being switched, and then Carlos Santana, he can come off the bench to be a switch hitter. I'm sure there's others that I just can't think of either, but yeah, it's going to be really interesting going against the Toronto lineup as we kind of transition here. Now we're about halfway through the 15 minutes. Some names that you mentioned already. George Springer, Seattle's very familiar with. That's a name I'm not looking forward to seeing because it seems like he has always torn up Seattle when he was with the Astros, and then I believe he had a couple home runs against us with the Blue Jays this year.
Right.
And then, of course, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., big power bat, all-star. I was kind of surprised that Toronto actually had 6 all-stars this year, which I don't know. I guess they kind of flew under the radar a little bit. But their catcher, Alejandro Kirk, as well, all-star. Right. Santiago Espinal, I don't even know who that is, but he was an all-star. And then Jordan Romano out of the bullpen for Toronto. I'm kind of going towards like what we were talking about with the pitching. I don't see an edge. I think I would give Toronto the edge here in the lineup, just based on paper and names. Is that something you would agree with, or do you think, just comparing the lineups, there really isn't a big difference in like edge? Oh, and I forgot Matt Chapman, who we also know very well.
Yeah. If you kind of match, if you go around position by position and you kind of go, okay, who's what? You got that first base, you got Guerrero basically going up against France or Santana.
Yeah.
Slight edge to Guerrero. But, France and Santana, just for the moment, if it's a close game, I may give Seattle the edge at that position. Just because both France and Santana seem to show up big when it needs to happen. Yeah,
of course, Ty walking off in the final game of the year as well. I think that's actually kind of a good thought, is to kind of go around there. So we just mentioned first base. I do think Guerrero has an edge offensively. I do think we have the edge defensively. I would much rather have Ty at first than Guerrero, like in the field.
Well, and Santana, not too shabby at defense.
No, not bad either.
For 36, I'm like, geez, I
still
play
plays
out like he does.
Yeah, just fine. Catcher Cal and Alejandro Kirk. One was an all-star, one wasn't. But I mean, Cal's I think he's leading the league in catcher home runs, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. He is.
I don't think there's really that big of a difference there. Like I'm fine with Cal, especially with the switch hitting ability.
Yes. Yeah. I think Cal just kind of got overlooked a little bit. You're going to go with Kirk. Most of the national writers will go with Kirk. But I think Riley is finally at a point hitting wise.
Yeah.
That I think he can compete. I wouldn't surprise me if he hits a couple dingers this weekend.
No,
I really don't.
Not at all. Going over to second base, Adam Frazier, and I think Kevin Biggio is still playing second there for Toronto. I don't know. At the beginning of the year, gave me Frazier, but now that we're at the end of it, he was not the all-star second baseman that he was in the past with Pittsburgh and San Diego. This one I probably would give to Toronto. Pretty comfortably. Going across there, Bo Bichette and J.P. Crawford. This one's kind of interesting, and I'm sure a lot of people would hate me here to say that it's closer than I think most people think it is. But I mean, I would lean towards Bichette. He led the American League in hits, and pretty good defensively.
Yeah.
Third base as well, Matt Chapman and Eugenio. I think it's closer than most people think it is. Especially with the way Eugenio played this year, defensively and offensively.
Right.
I feel like he's not that far off from Chapman. Am I wrong in thinking that, or is that a fair assumption?
No, and I would say just recently, I'm giving the edge to Eugenio in this one. I really am. I think Eugenio is in the right spot. He's in the right mind. Defense is great. We got Perry Hill to keep keep that defense where it needs to be. So I'm actually giving the slight edge to Eugenio on that position.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I really do. I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to step up. I mean, this is the limelight now. So, some of these guys have never been here or in this big of a stage. So, good vibes only. So I'm going to bid it to Eugenio.
All right, and then going to the outfield, left field, Lourdes Gurriel Jr. and Jared Kelenic. I think you got to lean Toronto on this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially with past performance.
Yep.
I'm going to assume Kelenic will start in left field for Seattle, especially like you said, it's such a righty-heavy pitching staff for Toronto. You might as well get the left-handed bat in there. But at least Kelenic plays good defense, so at least we have that going for him.
Right.
Kind of an interesting one, George Springer and J-Rod. I feel like I got to go J-Rod.
I'm calling it even.
Even?
Yep. I at least in my mind, because Springer is just one of those guys. Again, he's had Seattle's historically. He's had Seattle's number. He's a guy who also is going to lead off. He has his leadoff home runs as well.
Yep.
And I would say, J-Rod is right there with him. I don't think Springer has, coin flip. But just being in Toronto,
that's fair.
Comfort
that's
level of where the outfield is and knowing how to play that outfield because it is that turf field. I'm going to give it to Springer just because I think he's more comfortable in that environment. He knows what to expect with bounces and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a good point. I think, and I mean, hitting wise too, they actually hit very similar.
It's not that separate. Don't get me wrong. It's just I think under the circumstances,
it is close.
It is close.
And Springer with the large amount of playoff games under his belt as well. So, of course, that's fair. And then finally over at right field, Teoscar Hernandez for Toronto. And I guess you think Mitch Haniger starts in right?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Okay.
I think out of respect and out of, again, he's kind of hitting a little bit here. So maybe he was just starting to come back out of his funk. And if we can catch him on a peak going back up, that would be awesome. Yeah. He is obviously driven, being one of the oldest tenured guys on the team.
I think, isn't he the most tenured at this point?
I would say he and Marco. He's probably here. Yeah. So I would say he is probably the longest tenured guy though.
Yeah. I think so too.
I think he's going to raise his game too. Again, go for broke. I think he's going to lay out. I think he's going to be in tune. I think he's going to be there. So slight edge to Haniger and right, I would say on this one.
Okay, interesting. With about 30 seconds left here in our 15 minutes, I want to know your prediction. What do you think is going to happen?
I'm going to say Seattle's coming home after 3 games. 2-1 Seattle.
And how you think a game 1 win, game 2 loss? What do you think there?
Yeah,
think so.
Game 1, I'm going to give it game 1 to Luis, and then game 2 is probably going to go to Gausman against Ray. As much as I hate to say it, I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And then I think that third game, I think Gilbert will probably bring out Walter, and I think Walter will get us probably 7-8 innings in that game 3.
Fair enough. I like it. Yeah, I mean, I think when you kind of look at it, I kind of agree with that. I don't think it's a 2-game series for either team. I think it does go the full 3. And as long as we win game 1, I feel really confident, really good.
Because we still have a great shot at winning game 2 that way. So all the pressure's on Toronto at that point. So they're going to have to do something. And again, they're heavy right-handed hitting. So I don't know who they got to throw in there as a lefty and try to make their lineup work. So
I don't know.
Like it.
It's a good question. Definitely going to be watching though this weekend. Of course, I believe the game 1 and 2 are at 4:00 Eastern time, and then if it does go to Sunday, I believe that's a 1:00 Eastern time.
I think so.
So unfortunate for the Seattle fans, but hey,
Hey, it's great for us.
It's either you choose the Seahawks or the Mariners. So, and I think let's go with the Mariners if they're in Game 3 in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So really, really excited for this. It's been a long time coming, and it's great for the fans still in Seattle to be able to watch this team play and to have the opportunity to go to the park and watch on the big screen there as well. I know I would have been doing that if we were there.
Oh, yeah.
With that said, everybody, thank you all for watching. I would love to know how you feel about the Mariners in the playoffs and what your expectations are and what your kind of thought is with Geno Smith and the Seahawks going forward here. But as a final close, is there anything you'd like to add in before we sign off for the night?
No, I would just say have fun this weekend, Seattle Mariner fans. Have fun. This is what we've been waiting for a long time, October playoff baseball. Just enjoy it.
With that said, everybody, thank you all for watching. Go ahead, subscribe, like, and comment. And do comment, because I did ask for a couple responses there. But until next time, this has been Anchors Away, and we will see you all in the next episode.
Have a good one.